This is Dan Boyce at KBZK. I cover a lot of meetings, and the problem I find is that if I don't roll for the majority of the meeting, I miss that one soundbite, that one opportunity for a great soundbite from whether it's a city or a county commissioner, or even somebody speaking from the public. And then if I'm not rolling the whole time, inevitably I'll miss that one opportunity for the great soundbite. I mean, how would you approach that from not shooting in too much video?
Well, and again, I'm not a fan of meetings, but you separated. You're not just talking about the meeting. You're talking about the great soundbite. So
right.
if you went to the meeting hoping to get a good soundbite or a great soundbite, afterwards you can say, not recreate the soundbite, but dig into why that soundbite happened. So an interview, which you control as a journalist, okay, as opposed to letting someone speak at a meeting, I much prefer getting that kind of sound to go with something that happened at the meeting. And I think you have to assess whether or not it's important, and if it's an hour at a meeting versus 3 hours at a meeting, because I think the diminishing return of any meeting is, as far as I'm concerned, is after about a half hour. And Bob agrees with me because we only spend a half hour doing these. I think keep track of how many great sound bites you get out of a meeting, and if you have those that are really going to lead a newscast, that are the best they can possibly be, and people are going to see them as defining moments and memorable moments in your newscast, then you got me. But I don't think those happen very often.
Fred, I was considering my days as a photographer, and on days when you were sent out for several different assignments, maybe one of them being a package that you controlled, and then another one being, can you run by and pick up this press conference? And there's so many times when you just thought, okay, it's not my story. I don't know what the producer wants, so you roll on the whole thing and sort of pass responsibility off to whoever else is going to be writing the story. Is there any advice you can give somebody? It's that secondary assignment that a lot of times you just say, okay, yeah, sure, this is a VO bite, or this is going to be something, and they're sending me over, and I don't want to do it, so I'm just going to roll on everything and say here. Is there advice you can give MMJs and photographers to think more like a reporter out of the scene?
Well, the ideal thing, Galen, I think, is that if you had a little bit of the flavor of the news conference, I have a problem letting people take over our newscast. They get a chance to say what they want to say. I much prefer asking a really good question, advancing what they said in the news conference, and give me a specific on how you're going to raise jobs. Give me a specific on how you're going to do what you just talked about, because so far, everybody's saying the same thing, but I don't see a plan. So give me one good, maybe that's part of what we need to ask before we go out the door. So why am I going to this news conference, and what do you want me to bring back? What's the news value of going, and what am I going to get out of it that our viewers are going to care about?
Fred, we also might ask, what is the main viewer question? Because if you can focus on that viewer question, you can easily tease the story, and you know the soundbite.
Yeah, and how about using Facebook to say, Galen, you're going, it's like, I'm going to go listen to this news conference with, Joe Blow, and everybody knows Joe, so if you could ask a question of Joe, what would you ask? And then, say, you know what, on my Facebook, I even say it that way. I have 10 people that want to know this, and I'd ask that question in the news conference, and that may be the only thing that I would shoot.
And those of you at viewer advocacy stations, that's exactly what viewer advocacy is, serving as the voice of the viewer when you're questioning people in power. Fred, what about editing on the camera? It sounds great, but it's ideal and not always practical, right?
Well, I think then it comes down to understanding the story you want to tell. The easiest thing to edit in the camera, I always found, was a breaking news event. It's not going to go away. It's in front of you. And, if you have the good sense of letting people move in and out of frame, you can use the cutaways to your advantage. You don't do things that are magical so people look at it and are distracted by what they see. I think you can edit in the camera very efficiently. And, if you're shooting, one of the beautiful parts of being an MMJ, I think, is that you only have one person that you can be really happy with at the end of the day, or one person you can be really upset with. That either you got the great shots that you wanted that made the story come alive, or you missed them. And I think editing in the camera is how you make the story come together in your mind. It's part of the visualization of the story you're trying to sell and the story you're trying to tell. And I think that editing in the camera works because if you maintain one shot, you really have painted yourself, or you've shot yourself into a corner.
Galen, you had a good point the other day at one of our workshops, and that was keep rolling on breaking news until somebody tells you to stop.
When it comes to spot news, I've always just played deaf to whoever's in charge of the scene, and just started walking towards wherever the action was until someone stops me. And hopefully you're rolling too, and then so the idea is to get as close as you possibly can, and then if instead of looking at the scene for that group of cameras that's always it's your friend, hey, you go over and set your tripod up right next to his, and so you get the same thing this guy's doing. I go straight to wherever I see action, and then if they tell you to go over there, maybe you do, but at least you've got something else that's closer than those guys.
So this is Ariel over at KSBY in San Luis Obispo. I'll find sometimes that if I'm at a meeting, one of the MMJs is talking about rolling on the entire meeting for that good soundbite. If you have to, sometimes I find, like, as an MMJ, I can log out of the camera, so that good soundbite, if I find two of them, I'll just jot in my notebook what times they were, take them back, and now you're fine. You don't have to sort through the entire meeting. You just go to the time code and you're set there.
I know. Well, at our station, we record remotely whoever's at the podium. So there's always a tape rolling on the city council meeting in Oklahoma City. So that's your sort of fallback. And then if you insist on going to the meeting, you can get some other video, but the city already provides you with video of the entire meeting, so you have that if you really need it. But then you go outside and get what you really needed, which is the video and something to tell your story with other than being inside there. I find story ideas come from meetings, but stories don't. I mean,
I agree.
You get some great, you get the guy complaining about his backed up sewer or something like that. Well, okay, there's your idea. Now you got to take him out of the meeting. If you're really good, maybe you've seen the agenda and you know this guy's coming up, or you know there's a problem, and so you shoot everything before, and then you find out what happened at the meeting, so you can actually report the city council makes a decision on such and such. So I've never, you might be at a meeting for one specific purpose, or you may be at a meeting on a planning day when, if you get that kind of time where you can jot down, okay, I need to talk to this guy outside, I need to talk to this guy. But I'm with Fred. I'm not populating my story with a lot of people sitting around listening and city council members tapping their pencils on pad and looking bored.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, talking about the great soundbite or the best video that comes from a meeting, the one that comes to mind for me is, the Japanese fist fight. That's memorable video and belongs in a newscast, but that doesn't happen very often.